Hello everyone. Welcome back to another RLcraft episode. So today we will be doing a tutorial and guide on enchanting. So based on my last video, I was really thinking about it, and there's nothing to me more frustrating than starting this game and having a million weapons, which is already frustrating as it is, but then there's a billion enchantments to go with those weapons as well. And that would be fine and dandy if there was an all-inclusive guide on what enchantments did what and what enchantments go with what weapons. But whenever you start farming dungeons and your chests start to look like this, where it's just a bunch of enchantments, it is super frustrating, especially since they don't specify where the enchantments go. So today what I'm going to do is we're going to break down what enchantments are, what specific enchantments are, and where they can be placed as far as weapons go. So we will be, the way the layout will work is I will go in a non-specific order per se on what each enchantment is, and I will have a list on what weapons they can be enchanted onto, and I'll show the max level and what have you as far as what certain weapons can do. I will not be showing unbreaking and mending because those can be placed on pretty much on any weapon, so we will skip over that. If you know what they are, then you know what they are, but essentially it just makes your weapons pretty much last forever. Yeah, with that being said, at the end of the video, or maybe right after this, I will put a comprehensive list, probably just an Excel file of most of the enchantments and all of the weapons, and you guys can just look at it. I will not put the description of the enchantment just because it could take forever and it's gonna take way too much space, so I will go through this video on a enchantment by enchantment basis and what each enchantment does, and I will put the list of what weapons they can go under. So yep, without further ado, let's get started with our weapon enchantments. Also real quick, I will be doing a armor enchantments and a tool enchantments because there's also quite a bit of enchantments for each of those, and it's just as frustrating. But I figured since weapons were the most, it actually took me an hour to fish all these enchantments and try to find them from each mod, and it was just a pain. Okay, so just bear with me. It's gonna be a long video, so I'm sorry there was no easy way to condense all this information in a quick manner. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope it's helpful for you guys. So let's just get started with it. Alright, so before the video starts, or before I start explaining all the enchantments, I will do a small disclaimer that I will not be covering 100% of all the enchantments in this game, just because it's a crazy amount, and some of them are really obscure and super rare, and I don't have them, and I don't want to go into creative mode and kind of ruin my gameplay here. I do have most of them. I just don't have some very specific ones that are very rare to acquire. And I'll also be excluding greater, lesser, lightweight, heavyweight, mending, and unbreaking, incendiary, water aspect, and advanced looting. Sorry. Just because lessers and greaters are pretty much the same version, just, you know, as the name claims, they are better or worse than the original type of enchantments. Lightweight, heavyweight, they can be applied to just about anything. Mending and unbreaking, like I said at the beginning, can be applied to every weapon. Incendiary is the same as fire aspect, which just sets things on fire, and it pretty much just applies to anything that doesn't apply to anything that you can't apply fire aspect to. Water aspect, you can apply to anything, it just helps you move in water better. And advanced is the same as greater, and looting can be applied to any weapon that you use to kill. And I will not be talking about weapons that you can't craft, like things that have to be dropped, because some things just don't drop here, and just things like kunais, nunchucks, claws, tridents, like those things are not in this game, at least not that I've come across yet. So with that said, let's get started with the number one. Like I said, I will be naming off the enchantments, and I will be reading off what they do, and then you'll see a list of what weapons can have them. And you'll start to see a pattern that there's a lot of weapons that that fall into different categories that are the same, and so you'll start to notice that. But without further ado, let's get started with that. First one's very simple. It is just sharpness, and all sharpness does is it increases the damage to an enemy in increment of 0.5, starting with 1 with level 1. So it goes anywhere between level 1 to level 5, and the max added damage your weapon can have is up to +3 damage. And another thing to note with that is that you cannot combine it with Bane of Arthropods or Smite. So that would be some crazy damage if you could, but yeah, it's pretty much exclusive to that. Alright, so for the next weapon or enchantment, it's going to be Sweeping Edge, and what it does is it increases the damage dealt to mobs by each hit from a sweep attack. And it can go up to level 3. And so what, I'm not sure if you can tell from that animation, but essentially what Sweeping Edge is, you pretty much have to stand still almost, and you have to have your attack stamina pretty much almost up to full, and it'll just deal damage accordingly. And it can go up to level 3. So at level 1 you get an extra 50% damage, at level 2 you get 67% damage, and at level 3 you get 75% damage from the Sweeping Edge. And the way to achieve this is you can either walk to an enemy and attack it, or you can just stand still and attack the enemy. So next on the list is actually Knockback, and this specific weapon does not have Knockback, but it does have Flanks, and those two go hand in hand. But Knockback, all it does is knock enemies back by up to 3 blocks for each level. So Knockback will push enemies back by 3 blocks for each level, so up to 6 blocks or 8 if you're running towards an enemy and you just happen to attack it while running towards it. And this one's really great for trying to get away from mobs, and it can be applied to just about any weapon, so it's really great for farming dungeons and stuff like that. And then what goes hand in hand with that is the Fling, which will launch enemies up into the sky. So it's similar to Knockback, but instead of having a horizontal effect, they'll have a vertical effect. And I'm trying to find an enemy, and we'll see if we can trigger it. Nope, just froze. Yeah, it looks like I can't trigger the effect to show you guys, but yeah, just take my word for it. So just remember, Fling will shoot enemies up into the sky, and then Knockback will shoot enemies back. Alright, so next on our list is Smite. This one happens to have lesser Smite, but it doesn't really matter. So Smite, all it does is increases the damage to undead mobs, and like I said before, you can't combine it with Sharpness or Bane of Arthropods, because that would just pretty much give you control over killing every single mob in this game. So there I did 16 damage for a critical versus, let's say, 7 damage against normal mobs. Oh, 28 damage. I'm not sure how that happened, because these guys are not undead that I know of. Let's see, again, 18 damage. So yeah, the Smite, whether it's lesser or greater, super great for just going around killing undead mobs. Alright, so next up we have a few interesting ones, and that's going to be the subject mobs. This one in particular has Diffuse Edge and Subject of Science. So, Subject of PE. So this one has Subject of PE, and I could not for the life of me find the mod pack that had what the Subject of PE was for, but they're all pretty similar. They all just kind of depend, because there's Subject of English, Subject of Science, Subject of PE, and Subject of History. And you will see which weapons can that be applied to. But I think they're all rather interesting. I also have Diffusing Edge, which is good against creepers. So since I don't know what this... Oh, there we go. There we go. So that was Subject of PE. Apparently it launches the crap out of monsters. And then... Oh, you'll see what... Yep, there you go. That is subject of PE right there. Oh, God, I keep getting this wrong. Subject of science. Yeah, essentially subject of science will actually cause like a mini explosion, and it'll sort of make you... It won't paralyze you, but it'll stunt you for sure. It'll make your vision go blurry. You'll hear an explosion, but I didn't really get hit with an explosion there. So what I don't have in weapons, I don't have the subject of English or the subject of mathematics. And I'll explain to you what those do. Okay, so the subject of English will deal extra damage against smart AI. So that includes iron golems, wolves, villagers, anything that pretty much can interact with you in the game. Anything that would be considered as smart AI and not just random mobs. And then subject of mathematics, attacks have a common chance to deal extra damage to mobs. So that is pretty much just like a sharpness, but it's just random damage multiplier rather than having a set chance on how much extra damage you can do. And then diffusing edge, like I explained just a second ago, it will deal extra damage to creepers. And that's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Okay, so next up we have fire aspect, and this weapon in particular does not have fire aspect. But it does have incinerary, and as you can see, they both pretty much just have a chance to, oh my goodness, they just have a chance to set your enemy on fire. The only difference between the two is that one you use for weapons that are thrown, like you just saw, incinerary, and then the fire aspect is weapons that are pretty much actually melee. So I will put a list up and you'll see that there's an exact opposite on which weapons are used for what. Alright, so next up is the Bane of Arthropods. So Bane of Arthropods, again, it's on the category of extra damage dealing enchantments, and all it does is does extra damage towards pretty much spiders or anything that crawls, really. And I was trying to find a spider, but you typically don't find those unless you're in some sort of dungeon. And I don't think those are considered arthropods just because they're actually nether, but it looks like it's doing more damage than it was to the other mobs. Bane of Arthropods, Sharpness, and Smite are pretty much a triad. You can't have more than one of those enchantments in a weapon. So pick your enchantments wisely, because, you know, if you're going into a dungeon where you know there's a lot of zombies, then you might want to pick Smite versus, you know, Bane of Arthropods. Or if you know you're going into a full spider dungeon, then pick Bane of Arthropods. Or if you just want to deal general just badass damage, just pick Sharpness. Also, with Sharpness, there is another enchantment called Sharpened and not Sharpness, which also goes hand in hand with each other. It's just, you know, one's for items that are thrown versus items that, you know, are you use as melee weapons. You'll start to notice that pattern with a lot of these weapons. They have counterparts or whatever, which is pretty cool. But yeah, on to the next one. Okay, so up next we have another one that goes hand in hand. I tried to group a lot of these with each other just so you can kind of see the similarities between some of these enchantments. But Vampirism, what it does is just, this weapon in particular has Lifesteal, and it will, as you can see, heal you for the amount of damage you've dealt. Supposedly, it says attack heals you based on the damage dealt, which I mean just really means it's a percentage that you're getting back. And the same goes for Vampirism. So this one had Lifesteal and this one has Vampirism, and they should do pretty much the same thing. I just went there's the other bird. And Vampirism does pretty much the same thing. Dealing damage to another mob heals you. So the wording's different, but it should perform the same way. But it looks like, okay, so Vampirism has sort of a chance, or maybe you have to do a certain amount of damage before you can get healed. But for the most part, it looks like it was the same deal. Yeah, see, so you're not always leeching life from them. Whereas with Lifesteal, it looked like I was almost always getting health back from every attack. So maybe it's just a chance percentage. Yep, so now that I'm fully healed, I don't get anything. But as you can see, with this one, the Lifesteal, I got pretty much life every single attack back. So, with every single attack. So, if you want a more reliable one, try to go for the Lifesteal one. But if you're on a budget and you don't have Lifesteal yet, then Vampirism's still worth having. And I'm going to try to run away from this. Why? Oh, hypothermia. Terrible timing, guys. If you're wondering, these arrows, beautiful enchantments. It just makes you look like a badass warrior. There's no real benefit to it. I mean, maybe you'll feel pain while you're running through the woods for your life, and you'll look a little bit cooler, but definitely the best enchantments in the game. These arrows right here. Exclusive only to whenever you're getting shot. Anyways, next enchantment. Alright, so the other healing one that I am aware of, it would be Blessed Edge. I do not have the mod for it. The enchantment for Blessed Edge, but it heals for a percentage of the damage dealt and deals extra damage to undead mobs. So again, this is a combination of Bane of Arthropods and Vampirism or Lifesteal. So really great again for going into dungeons where there's a bunch of skeletons and zombies, and you're just gonna get a bunch of health back. You probably don't even need food at that point. But yeah, so those three, Lifesteal, Vampirism, and Blessed Edge, really great for healing, really great for new players. If you can find one, get your hands on it. So the next combo, so we have Envenomed and Viper, and these go hand in hand. I have Envenomed, but I have Viper, but I have yet to find an Envenomed enchantment. And so what you want to do is have an Envenomed enchantment, which every attack applies poison damage and wither damage to an enemy, which is already really great. And then a Viper, every time you attack an enemy, it will deal extra damage if the enemy is poisoned or has a wither effect on them. So it's a beautiful combo. It pretty much guarantees just about anything will die if you attack it back to back. I do not know if you can stack these because again, I do not have the Envenom enchantment, but I do have the Viper one. Alright, so real quick, I managed to get a Viper and an Envenomed enchantment together. I hope this isn't a really awkward cut, but I was messing around with some stuff after the video and I realized this is gonna kill a lot of things, but there you go. That's pretty much what the enchantment looks like when it's combined together. Whoop, there you go. So I have fire damage because it's a fire weapon. I have the venom damage and I have the viper damage. All three combined do crazy amount of damage. Did 19 to that creeper on one swing. And that was just base damage. So yeah, that's a pretty crazy combo set. If you manage to get your hands on it, I don't think I put it on this just because it was level 1 for both of them, and I didn't think I was gonna use it again. So who knows? I might start using a battle axe just because it's actually not too shabby of a damage, and the only enchantments on here are those two. So if I can put it together, or I can add extra enchantments to it, then that's gonna be really, really awesome. I did notice though, on this one, I can do Venom or Viper, but I couldn't do both of them. So one of these enchantments here is conflicting with the rest of them, with having both of them on there. Or maybe it's just the fact that there's a cap on how many enchantments you can have. But in any case, I managed to get both of these in one. So yep, that's some good information to have. Alright, so next up is culling, that right there. So this one, it's not really, you're not probably ever in the world going to need this, just because it only applies to axes, which is really lame. It's supposed to be more of a vanilla thing, but all it does is you jump up, and then as you're going down, you hit them, and yep, you see that? It did pretty much a 1 KO. It has a chance to pretty much kill the enemy in one hit if they're low HP, but it does extra damage as you're coming down, as you can see the little animation. But yeah, it's pretty much a combo move. It's very niche. It's and it only applies to these. I wish they would apply to like the battle axes and warhammers and stuff, and that way you'd look more like Thor going down. But it only applies to just regular axes. So yeah, it's worth mentioning, I guess. All it does, it gives you a jump boost, and then you deal an extra 1.5 times damage when you jump and you're attacking while falling down. And like I said, you have a chance to one-shot any enemy if they have low enough HP. So there's that. This is just gonna go back in the vault and never be used again because it's garbage. So yep, next enchantment. So disarmament. I don't know if you guys have ever faced an enemy that has the enchantment disarmament, but it is the absolute most annoying thing, especially when you're being chased by a lot of monsters, or like you're in the middle of a tower and there's a lot of people coming at you, and all of a sudden you lose your weapon and then it gets scattered in all of the mess of every single enemy mob. It's the worst experience ever. So I don't have any weapon that has disarmament, at least not anymore. It essentially just has the chance of you making the enemy, or the enemy making you, drop your or their weapon. So it's a very cheaty enchantment, and it only works if the enemy is carrying a weapon. So I mean, if the enemy is not carrying a weapon, the enchantment's pretty useless. But you know, it's more effective when the enemy has it and you're getting attacked, because odds are you're not beating up enemies with your fist and you will lose your weapon. So unfortunately, it's not very useful for you, but it's very useful for the enemy. Okay, so the next enchantment is kind of a hidden one. It is called Bash, and all it does is increases the stun chance. It looks like there's no actual book for it, but there's a book for disarm, which is weird that whenever you type bash, the thing just says that. But all it does is it increases your stun chance, so it can only be applied to hammers. And yeah, you have a chance of stunning the enemy, and then I guess it saves you some time. But I don't know, make of that of what you will. If you like using hammer and like looking like Thor, then you might like using that enchantment. So next enchantment is Assassinate. And once again, this is another weird one, because it says Assassinate in the enchantment book over here, but there's no such thing whenever you're trying to craft it. It says combo, and it is only effective for daggers, but it essentially, all it does is it increases damage dealt by a surprise attack. So if you have like an invisible potion and you're trying to sneak up on enemies, you will do an extra amount of damage whenever you sneak up on an enemy, because they don't know you're there. You're pretty much an assassin, and that's pretty much what it is. I don't use daggers, and it's not my cup of tea, so if you want to play as an assassin in this game, then this is the perfect thing for you. It's actually called combo here in RLcraft, so yeah, just remember that. You could type in assassin here in the search bar, and it'll bring you up to that, but the actual... Right, and so the next one is Education. Again, I don't have the book Education. Yeah, and it looks like this is another mob that isn't available in the game, but Education just multiplies the amount of experience dropped by killing enemies. And then there's counters and parries. So you will see which weapons can have counters and which weapons can have parries, but the main difference is that counters gives you a chance to counter attack. So you're dealing damage back to the enemy whenever you get attacked, but it does not block any damage that you receive from the enemy. And this is a 20% chance, and it increases by 5% for every level of the enchantment, which is up to level 3. So you can have up to a 35% chance of counter attacking. And then parry just gives you a chance to block the enemy's melee attacks. So this does not technically include arrows. I have not seen it work on arrows, but that's what shields are for. Just use your shields, man. And yeah, so that one just gives you a chance to block melee attacks. And that's with a 16% chance, and then an 8% chance for every level, which again goes up to level 3. So you have a 40% chance to parry with a max parry enchantment. So you know, there's a trade-off. One, you take with the counter, you take the damage, but you also deal damage back, versus the parry, where you just block the enemy damage. So depending on where you are at in the game, you might want to counter, you might want to parry. Yep. And then Lucky Strike, it's pretty much just like Education, but with loot, and that one just increases the drop rate from killed mob. Alright, so next up I have pretty much my god tier weapon right here. Oh, but of course it only works if I can hit, which apparently I'm really bad at. So what I'm really trying to show here is the Atomic Destructor, and it has a chance to one-hit KO any monster, excluding bosses. So this has a lot of enchantments. The only thing I wish I had was not really much. I mean, there's not much more you can ask for here. I wish, yeah, no, this is pretty set. But it does have Dark Shadows and Atomic Destructor, which we're focusing on Atomic Destructor, which, like I said, just gives you a chance to kill any monster in one hit. And then we have Ash Destroyer, which I don't have any Ash Destroyers, but I do have pretty much its combo set, which is anything that will set an enemy on fire. So Ash Destroyer will... Whoa! Sorry, I forgot I had pulling on that one. But Ash Destroyer will pretty much deal extra damage to enemies that are on fire. So that would be great for, you know, whenever you get enemies on fire. It would be terrible whenever you go to the nether. But yeah, anything you combo with a fire weapon and you have Ash Destroyer, probably the best thing, especially whenever you combine it with these the fire dragon weapons. You put Ash Destroyer on any fire weapon and you're pretty much set. You're gonna deal just as much damage as sharpness and other things like that. The other thing that kind of pairs with that, but you can't combine some of these mods, and I'll try to see if I can do a thing for which ones you can and cannot combine. But for the other one is Piercing Edge, and that one is for each level converts 25% of your damage to armor penetration attack damage against armored mobs. So again, this really only applies if your enemies have armor. So sometimes zombies will pick up armor or skeletons and they will wear it, and that's whenever it applies. If you just go and attack them and you have Piercing Edge, instead of dealing lesser armor, it's pretty much you're ignoring armor, and that is that. Or if you are in a PvP world and you actually have friends that you play RLcraft with, unlike me, who I just, you know, I'm lonely forever in this world and no one will ever come in my world because I don't have any friends. But anyways, yeah, so you could use that Piercing Edge to deal more damage to other players if you so wish. And then you have Purification. And I used to have a sword that had Purification until I'm pretty sure I died at some point, because I do that a lot in this game, and you will probably too, because it's RLcraft and it's inevitable. But with Purification, you just deal extra damage to mobs that are immune to fire and all nether mobs. So go into the nether and have a blast with Purification, and then have, I don't know, Lifesteal or something, and you'll just do crazy amounts of damage. You do not want to pair Purification with Ash Destroyer, because things that, you know, are immune to fire damage, you'll never do extra damage with Ash Destroyer. And then there is Arc Slash, which I have in this weapon, and I could not find for the life of me any forums that talked about Arc Slash. And the only thing that I see with Arc Slash that's different than anything else, yes, good. Is that the fact that you do a side sweep, and it has, I think, extra reach, and that's pretty much what Arc Slash is, and that's what I want to believe Arc Slash is, because honestly, other than just my normal stuff, I don't see a difference. See, like that had an extra reach to it, and I think that's what Arc Slash is. I couldn't find an actual definition for it, but if you want to go off of my made-up definition of what Arc Slash is, then by all means. Alright, and then we have Dark Shadows, which I've kind of shown, but there's no way for you to really see what it is. But if you've ever gone against the, what are they called, gas shadows or whatever, and you stop seeing things, everything turns black, and, you know, it's hard for you to find your way around. That's pretty much what Dark Shadows does. Hey, look, look, that's exactly what I was looking for. You, come here. I want to demonstrate something. Oh my god, do your thing. Do your thing. No, come on. Do your thing. I'm letting you attack me. No? You don't feel like doing that today? Oh, come on. Seriously? Whatever. That's what you get for not putting the enchantment on me. Okay, so Dark Shadows just makes you go blind pretty much, and you walk into the dark. But those are the guys who mainly cast that enchantment, and then you can have it on your weapons, and then your enemies will be blind as well. And like I said, there's no way for you to see whether or not they have Dark Shadows unless you have a mob that shows you like what kind of enchantments the enemy has. And then there is blessings. So now there's something called Soul's Blessing, which if I were to take this literal, soul means sun in Spanish, and I'm assuming you deal more damage during the daytime than during the nighttime, and that is my my educated. Oh look, it highlighted the monster, but I'm still not sure what it does. I guess it highlights it, and that's pretty much what the Soul Blessing is. If the monster's trying to run away from you, you will see it through the walls. So that might be it. It probably just makes them shiny. Kind of like, wow, all these mobs are appearing right. That's perfect timing. So you know how Wisp will give you a glow effect? I think that's pretty much, you see, glowing. I'm pretty sure that's pretty much what you're doing with this, the Soul Blessings. Except for the fact that you're killing enemies and they will... yeah, okay, see? Same enchantment. You glow, and you attack something or someone, and they will start to glow too, and you will be able to see them through the walls. I don't think you can see... yeah, you see that? I could not find the forums for it, but there's that. Alright, and then last but not least, I will go over the weather enchantments, and they're all very similar. I'm not going to demonstrate it because it would be a pain in the ass to go find the weather mob for, or just pretty much the weather pattern for every single weather enchantment, because they only work positively if you are in the biome or the respective weather of that enchantment. And yeah, they are pretty much what it sounds like. You get extra damage based on the weather pattern that is occurring currently. So right now I would get an extra damage boost for clear skies. I mean, I know there's clouds, but it is technically clear skies versus rainy days. And for every single one of these, you get an extra damage boost for being in the right weather of the enchantment. So for clear skies, it would be this, and you would just attack extra. The caveat to all these enchantments is that you do less damage if you're not in the right weather biome. And so you gotta be careful with that. I don't think it's really worth the enchantment. It's cool and it's very niche and it's very specific, but if you are going out and you're stuck in a rainy day and you have a clear skies enchantment, you're going to do so much less damage to any monster just because of that enchantment. The only weird exceptions are thunderstorms and winter's grace. With thunderstorms, bestowment, you will do just normal damage if it's at least raining. And then with winter's grace, you have to be in a snow biome in order for it to activate positively. So it can't just be snowing, and it can't just be cold. Like, you have to be in a snow biome in order for you to get the positive enchantment, or at least that's what the forum said. It did say you have to, your little thermostat had to hit the little snowflake. So, I mean, it could be, I don't have one, so if you guys want to test it out and want to check it out, then by all means. And that is all of the enchantments I have for today. This already took me several hours to look up because it is several different mods and just packs that, you know, since RLcraft is like 120 mods combined, I had to go through quite a few different mods to try to find every single one of these. Yeah, we went over everything on the list that I had. There's a few other ones that are very rare and very niche, and I have yet to find them in the game. But if you feel like you need an explanation for some of these, feel free to just leave a comment down below on which one you'd like to see. I think the only one I didn't go over is Inhumane, and that's because I couldn't find a description for it. And I'm just gonna assume that you deal more damage to either other players or other like villagers and stuff like that, so other human mods. yeah, so the only other thing to note is that obviously you can't put every single one of these mods with each other. So even if you have a weapon that is compatible with all of them, you can't put them all in that weapon. Like I said, Sharpness, Bane of Arthropods, and Smite can't go in the same weapon. Lesser, Greaters, and just regular enchantments cannot be stacked on top of each other. So for example, Lesser Sharpness cannot be stacked with Sharpness and Greater Sharpness. And then Lesser Bane of Arthropods, the same thing, you can't stack it with its counterparts. Same with the Lesser Fire Aspect, you can't stack it with regular Fire Aspect or Greater Fire Aspect. And then a lot of these, you can't stack it with other enchantments, even if they're not in the same category. So if you find like Fire Aspect, you also can't stack it with, I believe, Sharpness and Smite and Bane of Arthropods. You just have to pick and choose how do you want your extra damage. Do you want to deal extra fire damage? Do you want to deal extra undead damage? Do you want to deal extra ice damage? It's completely up to you. But just know that you can't have a fire mod or a fire enchantment with a, ice enchantment or with the undead enchantment. And that's pretty much the general rule on how to stack these. I know it's a big pain. The other thing, obviously, the big elephant in the room is I didn't go over bows and crossbows. They're really easy. There's not a lot of enchantments for them. So Sharpshooter, Full Speed, and Penetration, they're all for crossbows. Advanced Power, Damage, Infinity, I think it doesn't work anymore. Yeah, so Arrow Recovery, Multi-Shot, Power, Flame and Dragging, and as well as Pushing, they're all for bows. But that is it. That's pretty much all the enchantments bows get. So it's nothing big, it's nothing crazy, and that's why I didn't really bother to go over too much of them. I did have Boomerang in there, but again, boomerangs are just like, I don't know. Does anyone use a boomerang? Let me know down below. Because I sure don't, and I don't know, maybe I'll start doing it after this video. It sounds interesting now that I think about it. But yeah, that is that. I hope this guide was helpful to you guys. If you're looking for more of a cross-trained, I know the TLDR is usually you can't stack things that will deal extra damage on top of each other. And the mods the enchantments have to be crazy, like different for them to work together. So like you have Sharpness, Atomic Destructor, and Dark Shadows, and Reveal Blade. So those four will deal damage in different categories, but they do not stack damage. Like if you were to do, so Sharpness just adds damage. Atomic Destructor gives you a chance to instantly KO. Dark Shadows just applies a debuff to the enemy, and Reveal Blade, I could not find the mod for that, so I'm not sure what Reveal Blade does. But these three do not interfere with each other, and they do not stack up so much damage that the weapon is just broken. And so that's pretty much how you go about determining which enchantments can you stack on top of each other. Oh, so look at that. Bane of Arthropods and Fire Aspects you can't put together. Scratch that. And again, Fling and Throwback you cannot put together. It's not like you're stacking crazy amounts of damage. So I think the reason Fire Aspect and Bane of Arthropods work together is just because fire damage is a debuff rather than actual damage. And if you were to have Ash Destroyer, you wouldn't be able to stack it with the Bane of Arthropods. So there's that. There's the explanation for that. But if you feel like I missed anything, or you want more of an explanation for a certain item or items, feel free to leave a comment down below. I hope this guide helped you. Please leave a like. It took me so many hours just to put this together, and I'll be coming out with a armor guide and a tools guide. Tools would be so much easier just because there's not a lot of enchantments for them. There is more than the vanilla Minecraft, but it's not crazy like all these weapons, because you have to go through archives and archives of just pages of different enchantments. And anyways, I digress. But again, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and it was helpful to you guys, and let me know how I did. And thank you so much for watching, like always, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.